Meeting called to order at November. Meeting called to order November 13, 2019 at 7 p.m. Just a notice to the student body, all students are members and participants in student government and as such are encouraged to take part in discussion of Senate bills and orders or issues affecting students. Please wait to be recognized by the chair and be courteous to others wishing to speak. We'll go ahead and move into roll call. Senator Advet. Oligard. Bender. Blair. Khan. Colbison. Dallinger. Fritz. Green. Hanyang. Heasley. Class. Klein. Klein. Lipford. Ludwig. Mass. Meredith. Mitchell. Rice. Rinchi. Rolling. Samanu. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonette. Zastro. Did I miss anyone? So Crab, Origer, and then Gonzalez. Crab. Origer. Gonzalez. Did I miss anyone else? All right. Seeing none, we move down to Pledge of Allegiance, led by Madam Speaker. Moving on, for programs for tonight, we do have Carolyn from Writing and Media Center, if you want to approach the lectern and
We must have a very tall person who normally stands here. Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? Good. Just one comment as I first came in here. It's really great to see such a wide range of disciplines and majors represented at student government. So I see many smiling faces, many enthusiastic individuals here. So thank you for having me. I'm just going to speak a little bit about the Writing and Media Center, kind of the services we offer and some of the things that might be helpful for you in your professional development here at Iowa State. My name is Carolyn Gonzalez. I'm the Assistant Director at our Writing and Media Center. So kind of an overview of what the Writing and Media Center is. We are a welcoming and inclusive peer tutoring center where friendly communication consultants or tutors offer individualized assistance to undergraduate and graduate students. We also work with faculty members occasionally across all disciplines working on any form of written, oral, visual, or electronic communication. So we are housed under the Dean of Students office, which means that we're committed to empowering students to thrive during their time at Iowa State University and after you leave here as well. This is why we really support student-centered learning and aim to make our centers, all three locations, places where students can ultimately feel like they belong. So ultimately, what is our mission then? To help students become stronger communicators. Our intercultural learning specialist at the Writing and Media Center is doing some ongoing research, kind of in the broader spiel of Writing Center studies to see the impact that Writing Centers have on grade point average and retention rates in universities more broadly. But we collected some data last year as far as how the WMC, the Writing Media Center, can help boost student GPAs. And we found that GPA can actually be increased by 0.211 on average, and that cumulative GPA was increased by 0.199 by students who use the center. So that is a pretty nice little bump. We like to put that plug in, which might be of interest to those of you who are flailing, taking 18 credits every single semester. Know that we are here to help you out. So what are the kinds of things that we can help you with? First, I'll start with the course assignments. We see essays probably most frequently, but we can also work with science writing, lab reports, oral presentations. We do have a conference room set up specifically for helping you with presentations, and we have a smart board set up. We can have a panel observe your presentations, whatever kind of needs you need met. And we also work on websites, any kind of electronic formats as well. But we don't only serve undergraduate students, we also serve grad students. So those of you who are thinking about pursuing graduate studies here at Iowa State know that we are here for you as well. And we can help with some of those longer manuscripts, seminar papers, articles that you're thinking about submitting to journals, theses, dissertations, all stages of those larger projects too. And something that I like to put the plug into is that we work with a lot more than just required assignments for classes. We can do a lot for you as far as your professionalization, which is probably important for those of you upperclassmen who are looking to graduate pretty soon. We can help you with crafting professional emails, cover letters, scholarship applications, resumes, CVs, personal statements, you name it. We have a wide range of consultants who have completed those documents themselves and are very skilled and ready to help you out. And we don't just help with the final written product, right? So we really like to do this collaborative approach to helping you create the most solid document that you can have at the end. So we can start with just understanding the assignment. If you're unclear about what your instructor is looking for, what the specifics of the assignment are, we can then go into generating ideas, maybe organizing your thoughts, doing outlining, developing arguments. I know those of us in here might enjoy developing arguments, incorporating source material to support those arguments, right? Finding ways to correctly cite, whether you use MLA, APA, Chicago style, we can help you with all of those. And then revising and polishing too. And so how our services work, all of our consultations are one-on-one consultations, but we can also do small group consultations upon request. We do in-person and online appointments. We also offer writing workshops, and we also do retreats across the year. This year we will be doing 4, and I'll go into each one of these services in just a second. So starting with the consultations, you can schedule for a 30-minute or a 60-minute appointment with a tutor. You can get 1 appointment per day, up to 3 per week, and you can schedule up to 2 weeks in advance. You can cancel your appointment up until the time that your appointment is supposed to start, except for when it comes to the online appointments, we do request that you cancel at least 4 hours in advance. And one thing that I do want to stress is that while we are not a line editing or proofreading service, there are services such as those across campus that you can pay quite a pretty penny for to get line edits done. What we like to do is help our writers identify patterns in their writing, in their presentations, and all of their projects, and figure out ways that we can set you up with success before you leave, equip you with the tools rather than us just doing the fix-it-shop style to your projects. Okay, and then this takes me to workshops. Workshops can be given by the Writing Center upon request. We do workshops on a wide range of things, so personal statements, resumes, and cover letters are probably the most popular ones that we get requests for. We can also do presentations on editing strategies, grammar. We're constantly developing new workshops. Student organizations, instructors can request these. We just rolled out one on first-generation student success, and we also did one on creative writing. We're entertaining the idea of doing a bill writing workshop, so there's all sorts of wiggle room there, too, as far as future workshops along the way. So who here has actually used the Writing and Media Center? Okay, a couple of, hopefully after this, a few more of us want to. We are located in Carver Hall. That's our main location. It's in 208 on the 2nd floor. But then we also have 2 satellite locations as well. We have one in the Hickson Lead space. Who here has gone to the Hickson Lead building? Know where that is? Okay, cool. So we're on the 2nd floor of Hickson Lead as well in room 1020. And then our final location where we hold all of our evening hours is in Parks Library in one of those little study rooms. We're housed in number 4. And all of our locations are easily accessible by the Orange 23 bus. I like to put that in there, especially as it's getting colder. It's really nice. You can just kind of make your way all the way around to each one of our locations. We offer online consultations. I spoke a little bit about this. We piloted this last summer, and it's been pretty popular for us, honestly. It's a really useful tool for students who aren't able to access one of the physical locations, whether that's from accessibility issues or even from students who go back home abroad in the summertime. It's been really, it's been a valuable source for them too. And there's our hours. Essentially, we're open every day of the week except for Saturday. Carver, our main location, and Hickson are open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5. We close at 2 p.m. at both of those locations. And then, like I mentioned before, our online does mirror with our in-person locations, but Parks Library is the only spot that we are actually open in the evening from 5 to 8. And to schedule an appointment, just go to wmc.dso.iowastate.edu, and this is how you can create an in-person appointment or an online consultation. You can also just call the Writing Center, and we can help you get set up too. And so how would you create an appointment with us? We recently switched to a different scheduling software, so I kind of just want to show a few screenshots as far as what that new software looks like. So you'd have to log into our online scheduler, and if you're on the Writing Center's website, on the top right-hand corner, you'll just hit Schedule an Appointment, and it will take you to this screen. Scroll down to select your location. You'll see Hickson, Parks, Carver, and also an online slot. Click on the desired consultation time slot, and all the available slots will be any of those white spaces. If they are blue or yellow, that means that that is already scheduled out for another student. Fill out the form. You probably can't read that too well, but essentially in the form, just make sure you have your net ID, your email, a little bit about you, maybe what your assignment is, what you're planning on coming in for. Really, the most important piece, though, is that contact information, so you can get those confirmations for your appointment. I also like to put the plug in for this one. If you arrive 5 minutes early, you can print your assignments for free. Many of us might be printing a forest, it feels like, but do know that if you come to the Carver space or the Hickson space, we do offer free printing too. There's our contact information. If you go to our website, you can find all of that too. We are on social media. We're trying to become more social on our social media. We have Facebook, Twitter, which is probably our most active avenue, and then our little tiny Instagram is slowly but surely starting to grow. All right, any questions?
Questions for our speaker, Senator Alucard.
May I address the speaker?
Yes, you may.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. I was curious because you said you offered services for graduate level students, and I know a lot of journal submissions are often worked on with the student and the PI. So what credentials do you guys have for those peer-reviewed articles that are being submitted when they might be holding a lot of weight for those students?
Yeah, sure. So while we offer services for students, we're also a research unit as well. So something that the Writing Center is really advocating for this year is doing conferencing. And we have several graduate students who work for us. We have research assistants who work for us who are trained to specifically work with other graduate students on those projects. While we do unfortunately mostly have English majors as our graduate students, we are starting to see a few more engineering students, students from other majors coming in too, who are versed in various academic writing conventions.
Awesome, thank you.
Good question.
I yield.
Senator Heasley.
May I address the speaker?
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for coming in. So I was wondering, what is the exact purpose of the limit to amount of appointments you can have per day and per week?
Yeah, so it's kind of like an air quote limit. We can allow for additional appointments if absolutely needed. The biggest reason for that is just kind of a logistical thing to make sure all students have an opportunity to schedule appointments with us. Especially when it gets closer to midterms and finals, it can be really busy in all three of our locations, and we just want to make sure that we're giving equal opportunity to everybody to get in. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering because I know I've heard of situations where like, a student will go in and then want to continue with another appointment like later in the day, but then they can't. That's anecdotal, of course, but.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. If it was really a circumstance in which the student like direly needed to stay, we would accommodate and make that appointment. A lot of times, though, with situations like that, it just comes down to we're booked already and there isn't an open slot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I yield.
Senator Tonet.
Hello, thank you again for presenting
Yeah,
for us
absolutely.
today. So I'm kind of curious about these online solutions. How does that actually look? What does that look like?
Yeah, so our online consultations? Sure, so we do synchronous online consulting. We do everything through Google Docs. And so essentially how an online consultation works is we share a doc with you to the email that you provided, hopefully, in your profile on WC Online, which is our scheduling software. You'll get that document sent your way, and then consultants use a wide range of features through Google Docs. We'll use comments. Sometimes we'll write on the documents, do kind of this back and forth collaboration. We also use the chat feature too. So basically, once you're online, say you scheduled a 7 o'clock online appointment, you will see that your consultant is online, and then that process can begin.
I'm a huge fan of the chat feature, so that's really cool. So I guess, do you have any data on like how many students have used this resource or
So
anything like
for the
that?
online consulting?
Or just the Writing and Media Center in
So
general?
it's a little tricky right now since we did switch to this new system. So as far as our most recent numbers, I can't give you that report just yet. But as far as last year, we did see between 6,000 to 8,000 students, I believe, in the year. And again, the previous system we had linked directly to the registrar's office, so we could get some more unique data. We're still integrating, trying to get more of that data collected through this new system. But we see several students across a wide range of majors too, and some very interesting projects too, I would say. Yeah. Question.
Yeah, that's a pretty good number, and I think we're all kind of on the same page that we think more students should use this resource. So I guess that leads to my ultimate question. I guess, how can we as student government help the Writing and Media Center kind of expand more?
Yeah, absolutely. So since I'm seeing like such a wide range of majors in here, the biggest thing would just, advocate for us. Let us know, let others know that we don't just work with 150 and 250 essays. Of course, we love to help those students, but bringing this into graduate students too, right? If you have a TA or somebody that seems like they're complaining about their seminar papers or their thesis is due in a week, tell them to come our way. We're more than happy to help them too. When it comes to lab reports, all of those sorts of documents, even if you're getting close to graduating, we can help you with your job search materials, all of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I yield.
Senator DeVette.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming out today.
Yeah,
This isn't
absolutely.
really as much a question as it is a plug. I just wanted to say the Writing and Media Center is really great, and something we also keep in mind is there for all majors, not just English majors. I had this misconception at first, but then I talked to our wonderful Carolyn and realized that they're all about communication, and that's important in every single major. And lastly, an appeal to all of my colleagues here. Talk to your constituents when you have open forums and stuff, and let them know that this resource exists, because it's really helpful if it's anything to do with communication. I yield.
Further questions for our speaker? Seeing none, thank you so much.
All
for
right,
coming
thank you
out.
for having me, everybody.
Moving on to open forum. Open forum is an open discussion for issues relevant to students. Anyone wishing to speak can approach the lectern.
Hello, I am Senator Ian Searles, Ferguson Court Senator. As most of you know, or all of us should know, last Thursday, University administration proposed their list of responses to the Students Against Racism demand letter. Before that program, there was a land acknowledgement given by 3 students. Someone via Reddit then made a threat against those students. That was the email that was sent to us earlier today. To me, this shows, one, we can get into the cowardice of using a screen and the idiocy of that threat. But what I'd like to echo is the statements that were made through that land acknowledgement and reminding us all why that was made. So using the words from that land acknowledgement, we are on stolen and occupied land today. There are a number of tribes from a number of nations that belong here that were removed from people who look just like me. Some of those tribes include the Winnebago, Pohocha, Niayuchi, Omaha, Ponca, Dakota, Meskwaki, Sauk, Kickapoo, Anishinaabe, Potawatomi, Iowa, Ottawa, Chippewa. It can go on and on. The line that sticks out to me from the land acknowledgement last week is, there's enough room for everybody except for the people that say that there isn't. So just moving forward, taking solidarity with that, taking solidarity with the students, and letting people know that the bigotry, the hatred, and the threats are not welcome here. They're not welcome in this body, and they're not welcome at this university.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate. I'm the College of Veterinary Medicine Senator. And I also wanted to follow up regarding the incident on Reddit. I had a student respond to President Winterstein's email, and they requested that I read their comments at open forum tonight. I will not be naming them because they are a minority, and I'm just doing that out of their protection because we have seen responses that are inappropriate to that. I'm currently a student at the College of Veterinary Medicine, and I've been following the current racist events at Iowa State and recent attempts to begin the dialogue and efforts to address climate issues on campus. I am writing to express my great disappointment that your email to the school about the social media threat being investigated only condemned physical violence as being deplorable and did not make any statement about the deplorability of racism on campus. I understand these alleged social media threats are under current investigation, so no statement can be made as to the actual intent behind these threats. But given the people being targeted, as you said, those who participated in the land acknowledgement statement at the Students Against Racism meeting, there is a very real possibility that this is not only a threat of physical violence, but also the threat of a hate crime. Only people who read carefully and know what land acknowledgement statements are and why the group Students Against Racism have been speaking out recently would have any indication that this is a very possibly a racially motivated threat of violence to silence students who have been speaking out against racism on campus. Any threat of violence is extremely serious, but within an alleged attempt to intimidate those fighting the racist climate on campus is the implicature of potential violence against students of color and allies of students of color who are working hard to bring to light and address the racist climate on campus. I hope you will consider making a clear statement to the Iowa State University community about the seriousness and, quote, deplorability of threats of racial violence and any racist behavior on campus in regards to the social media threat being investigated. So they just wanted me to communicate that, obviously, with the students, giving feedback, it's possible that President Winterstein changed her language in the email to the student body, but it's still really important that we condemn this act. And because they reached out to me and wanted me to share that, I want you guys to know that it is something that we're still dealing with on CVM. I've had students ask me about chalking, even though we don't really see chalking. So just keep that in the back of your mind that the deplorability isn't necessarily just the threats of physical violence. It includes the racist nature behind those actions. Thank you.
Any further speakers for open forum?
Yeah, I'm on the Transportation Advisory Committee, and an idea proposed in that committee that I was asked to get feedback on, although I have a feeling what the feedback will be, is not having parking at Iowa State be free on nights and weekends anymore, and having a pass that students could purchase for between $15 and $30 to park on campus over the weekends, and the money raised could offset future increases towards parking fees to everyone. So the revenue raised could make it so that essentially parking would be like $5-ish cheaper for all passes, although I was against this in the committee, and I would be interested if you all have particularly eloquent or strong reasoning as to why this is a bad idea. My reasoning was that students just aren't going to come to campus, and that's not an environment that we want to have, was kind of the main point. But I'll let Senator
Senator
Chair,
Searles.
Yeah,
It's not very eloquent, but my U-bill says no.
yeah.
Senator Deal. Senator Zastrow.
Yeah, I currently don't have a car here. I'd like to have one next year. So if parking was cheaper, that'd be great. I also think that we need to take into consideration the community of Ames, who frequently use our facilities for one reason or another, and who I think should not have to pay an entire extra parking pass just for their occasional use of our facilities. I don't think it's that much of a hindrance, but it would be a hindrance to the community of Ames. I yield.
Senior Director of Academic Affairs, Moody.
Yeah, I would say that it has the opportunity to negatively impact, sorry, I'm getting over my cold, negatively impact people's educations because it limits their access to resources like the library at night. Like I know I personally am a commuter and I would like the buses, the 23 Orange stops running sometimes at like 10:45. So if you're trying to stay late at the library for like study groups, anything like that, I don't know, I don't have a lot of money. I can't like pay to park. So just that's like a general thought that could negatively impact people's educations.
Do you? Oh, do you? Senator Advet. Senator Green.
Yeah, just as everybody else said, the negatively impacting your education, and also I'd just like to point out that like $5 off of potential other parking passes is literally no money in comparison to how much we're all paying for our tuition. So like that's not even really like a good argument on their stance. I yield.
Yeah, can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't want to misrepresent members on the committee, but I think they were looking at $5 off faculty parking as well as student parking, and that was the draw. I don't want to misrepresent them, but that was kind of what they were discussing a lot. So, yeah.
Senator Alucard.
So I actually have a different perspective. I don't support this, but so the Student chapter of the American Veterinary Medical Association every month has to come here for meetings for 3 to 4 hours on nights. And so we, like it's 600 students roughly coming to campus, and one of the biggest plugs is that it's after 5:30 and that we're not paying for parking. We still carpool because it's a huge mass migration of vet students. And so if you were to then potentially implement that, you would have less turnout. And while it's still required for us to go to a certain number of meetings a semester, we would then go to the bare minimum. I can tell you personally that I wouldn't. It also makes it harder for off-campus students to participate in Senate. I can tell you right now that one of the biggest plugs for me being here is that I'm not paying for parking. So, and I want to be involved, and I think that you'll have more graduate and professional student involvement if that continues to be a thing.
Thank you.
I yield.
Senator Lifford.
I'll yield to Director RBC.
So I work at Network Counseling, and we have a lot of community members. And the reason that we have like an entire group of community members that aren't students, have never been students, and they park on the street in front of Science Hall. They park behind Lago. They park right over there. And we've had people literally turn down services because they can't park there. Like, and they have to come later in the hours. So that gets community involvement, community counseling involved on campus, and gets our grad students practice and everything, and makes our psychology grad student program so great. And then also I think in Forker, and there's other buildings where parents bring children for like swimming lessons and stuff, and there's other places where parents bring children, which grows the university as a whole, grows the community aspect of it. So I think adding more money to pay and stuff like that is just going to get parents not wanting to get their kids involved, the community just like even farther and separated away from Iowa State. So those types of things. I yield.
Further questions or comments?
Okay, I'll go back and say that we unanimously did not like it. And if anybody has any points, I thank you, Senator Alucard, for that point and that kind of specific of like, this is a specific detrimental impact, because I know generalities, but things like that I wouldn't have known, but would have a big impact. So if you have anything like that, please ask me. I think the next meeting is in a couple weeks, so just let me know. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vice Speaker Schrader. Moving on to adopting. Are there any further students for your open forum? Senator Vet. Oligard. Bender. Blair. Khan. Culbertson. Dollinger. Fritz. Green. Hanyang. Heasley. Class. Klein. Klein. Lipford. Ludwig. Mass. Meredith. Mitchell. Rice. Rinchi. Rolling. Samanu. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonet. Zastro. Crab. Orger. Gonzalez. We do have quorum. Moving on to adopting tonight's agenda. Are there any changes or additions to tonight's agenda? Senator Class.
I move to add Bill 2019-2-050F, funding National Society of Black Engineers, to the bottom of new business. 2-050F.
Is it funding National Society of Black Engineers?
Yes.
There's been a motion to add 2019-2-50F, funding National Society of Black Engineers, to the bottom of new business. And there's been a second. Are there any objections to adding the bill to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, the agenda has been added. The bill has been added to the agenda. Senator Class.
This is a point of information.
Yes.
Do I need to take from the table or? Okay, cool. I move to take from the table 2019-2-044F, funding Symphony of Diversity, and place it at the bottom of general orders.
There's been a motion to pick 2019-2-44F, funding Symphony of Diversity, up and add to the agenda, and there's been a second. Are there any objections in adding that bill to the agenda? Seeing none, the bill has been added to the agenda. Senator Class. Further motions or additions? There's been a motion to move to adopt tonight's agenda, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the agenda stands approved. Approval of minutes. Are there any changes to last week's meeting minutes? There's been a motion to move to adopt last week's meeting minutes, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the meeting stands approved. Moving on to committee reports, starting off with rules with Madam Speaker.
Okay, so last Friday, rules met for 3 minutes, if you looked at our minutes. But we sent the bill looking at court reform favorably, and then on Tuesday, yesterday, we met with Finance Committee and started going over Section 11. So.
Questions for Madam Speaker? Seeing none, we moved on to Finance Committee with Finance Director Mueller.
We had a joint meeting with Rules Committee last night, so we went over Chapter 11 of the bylaws. If anybody has any comments, questions, concerns on Chapter 11, we made some edits that we are going to write up into a bill. Multiple bills actually is the plan, but if anything comes up between now and then or after that, let me know and we can definitely look at it. We had lots of discussion on that. Also doing PNC review, hoping to finish that by the end of this semester. If anybody has questions on PNC, we'll also be looking at that. After today, we'll still have $3,000 in the Senate discretionary account. I believe we have 2 more orgs to see, and then we will not see any more for the rest of the semester unless something crazy comes up. So we should be good with the account balance. But then starting next semester, we will look at if we want to put more in there.
Questions for Finance Director Mueller? Seeing none, we move down to Student Initiatives Committee with Senator Rowland.
Nothing to report.
Questions? Seeing none, we move down to PR Committee with Senator Meredith.
Do you want to
Director of Outreach, Swartz.
Hi guys, a couple things. If you have not signed up for the residency fair, you should do that. I think we have a couple more spots. This is like kind of our first event in a while, so we do want to like kind of just show a positive face for student government, and how we do that is showing up. So that would be great. And then also the Lifestyle Expo. We still have a lot of spots for that. I know that's in January, but if we can start signing up now, that will be cool. PR met yesterday, and we're kind of in the talks about doing like finals goodie bags. We did it last year, so we're kind of working on that right now. Yeah, any questions?
Questions for Director of Outreach, Swartz.
Oh, also, if you haven't sent your cabinet or Senate spotlight, you should do that. Cool. Okay.
For questions? Seeing none, we move down to Diversity and Inclusion Committee with Senator Samuel.
All right, so we had a very short meeting, and we mostly talked about the list of changes that President Winterstein put forth specifically new changes that might occur. And then we talked about how we possibly want to go to the higher regent level with University of Iowa, UNI, and the Iowa School of Death. We talked about issues going on around campus. We talked about the project with Director of Health and Wellness, Raya, and she was on board with doing that with us. And then we have a date set for Heroes Week, which is myself, Senator Klein, and Senator Rowling, and the SI committee that is working on it. It's March 9th through the 13th, and it's 7 to 9 p.m. every night. And it's going to be in different places. And then some of the events that are going on this week that Elena and myself will be attending is the International Bazaar Night, which is on Friday, Puerto Rican Night, which is on Saturday, and both of those are free for everyone to attend. It's here at the MU. And then Diwali Night, which is on Sunday night, but that costs $5. So if you guys are interested in going with us, just let us know.
Questions for Senator Samuel? Seeing none, we move down to Civic Engagement Committee with Senator Tonet.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed the wintry day that we had today. So civic engagement, we met earlier. We talked a little bit more about our I'm a student and I vote stickers. We kind of ironed out the design and everything. I think they're going to be hype. So we kind of looked at the Senate schedule coming up before caucuses in early February, and we realized kind of going to have to hustle on creating this design if we want to get funding through Senate. So we're looking into that. We're also looking into other options for funding for those stickers. And then also we kind of talked about how we want to get the word out about the caucuses coming up and just general civic engagement stuff. It was a good meeting.
Questions for Senator Tonet? Seeing none, we move down to comments from the executive branch with President Graber.
Senator Tonet, I did enjoy the wintry weather. It was good. It was good. Thank you for that. So I have a few updates. The first one is one of the bills we're seeing tonight is the Funding Symphony of Diversity. They're asking it to come through the Excellence account. So refer to my last email from last week on the criteria, just as an FYI. And then the next update is tomorrow, Vice President Bhatia and then our Senior Director of Government Affairs, Nick Johnson, and I will be headed down to Cedar Falls tomorrow for the Board of Regents breakfast meeting we have with the regents. We'll obviously be talking about the campus climate on all 3 regent universities. We'll be talking about mental health initiatives working on Iowa State facilities, and then highlighting the residency fair and the campus safety walk as well, because I think they'll think that's super cool. Up next, obviously I talked about the residency fair. So the residency fair will take place on Tuesday, November 19th from 3 to 6 p.m. in the South Ballroom of the Memorial Union. Students will obviously be able to meet with property owners of Ames to see what housing options they have. We also are working with the Department of Residence in this, so they'll also be there as well. And yeah, there's also going to be a chance to win a speaker and ISU gear as well, so there's an incentive to go. And then National Recycling Day is on Friday, November 15th for America Recycles Day. Shout out to Izzy Wild and the Sustainability Committee on working on putting that on. And so that'll be on November 15th, Friday, at the Memorial Union, outside of the Memorial Union, right? The bookstore? Outside of the bookstore. Sorry, I read out. My apologies. Outside of the bookstore in the MU from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will also be games and information on recycling as well. And then finally, student government won $200 gift card from Amazon for winning homecoming. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to spend on that. So we're going to put a poll on the whiteboard in the West Sauce, and then you can just like write whatever you think we should buy on it, and we'll vote on it. Please be reasonable. It's $200, and please make good choices. Are there any questions regarding anything?
Questions for President Graber? Seeing none, we move down to external matters. Within external matters, General Orders 2019-2-49F, funding Special Ops Club with Senator Lifford.
I move to accept amendments recommended by Finance Committee.
Second.
There's been a motion to move to adopt the amendments proposed by the Finance Committee, and there's been a second. We move into discussion. Senator Lifford.
So basically what we did is they were requesting some capital items and they're only funding eligible, so according to PNC, they can't get those, but we want them to continue to promote their club, so it's just some printing and the flyer distribution. And we have Daniel here that you can come up and talk about your request.
Hey, yeah, what kind of questions can I answer?
Do you want to go ahead and accept the amendment and then move into discussion? Would that be preferable? Further discussion on the amendment? There's been a call to question on the amendment.
Second.
And there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a placard vote. And there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections on approving the amendment by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment stands approved. Senator Lifford.
Just explain what your club is and why you need this money.
Yeah, so Special Operations Prep Club started out in Air Force ROTC. It's been around for about 7 years. We basically have training sessions. Some of those training sessions, you know, state, lead, and Buyer Pool. We had university students come up to us at Buyer Pool quite a bit and ask us what we were doing. We aren't swimming. It's exercises in the water, like hypoxia exercises, which just tests your carbon dioxide tolerance. Anyways, we had university students come up to us, and there's enough interest, so we decided to open up the club to the rest of the university. The purpose of the club is to just interact with Iowa State University students interested in the military, and more specifically, military special operations. If that's something they would like to do, it's a little bit more rigorous, the selection process, so we would like to set them up with it. And specifically, what we'd like to do with the funding is just increase the awareness of the club. We just opened it up on February of 2019, so that's kind of what we're aiming for now.
Questions for our speaker? Motion. There's been a call to question on the bill as a whole, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Senator Vet. Yes. Olicard. Yes. Bender. Yes. Blair. Yes. Khan. Yes. Culbertson. Yes. Donlinger. Yes. Fritz. Yes. Green. Yes. Hanyang. Yes. Heasley. Yes. Pass. Yes. Klein. Yes. Lifford. Yes. Ludwig. Yes. Mass. Yes. Meredith. Yes. Rolling. Yes. Samanu. Yes. Schrader. Yes. Searles. Yes. Stanley. Yes. Samuel. Yes. Tonette. Yes. Zastro. Yes. Crab. Yes. Origer. Yes. Gonzalez. Yes. With a vote of 28 to 0 to 0, this funding request passes. Moving on to 2019-2-44F, funding Symphony of Diversity with Senator Lifford.
Okay, I'll move to change the account to the Excellence Fund.
Second.
There's been a motion to move to amend the bill and change the account from special projects to excellence fund, and there's been a second. We move into discussion. Senator Lifford.
Call the question.
Second.
There's been a call to question on the bill as a whole, on the amendment. Apologies. And there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a placard vote. And there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in approving the amendments by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment stands approved. Senator Lifford.
I'll yield to the representative from the organization. Can you just explain what your request is for?
Right. So, hi, I'm Caleb. I'm here to represent the Symphony of Diversity. Basically, what we're asking for from the Excellence Fund is just additional funding to rent Stevens Auditorium for this event. They have various things that they have to pay for their own staff, for setting up the equipment, for sound tech, and etc. So basically, we've gotten funding from other colleges and offices, but anything we can get will help.
Questions for our speaker? Senator Ludwig.
There we go. Are you guys using the Stevens Auditorium for anything else, or is it just for the lecture?
It should be just for a lecture, and then I believe as well a performance by one of the speakers we're bringing.
Okay. The reason I ask is this relates somewhat to the question we had last week relating to lectures funding. since, did lectures just fund the speaker, or did they fund the performance as well? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, it's all going towards the same thing.
It
so,
does? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on the committee, but I couldn't find the meeting minutes for it. Yeah, no, the concern is that if my memory serves, we did fund both. And similar to last week, the kind of double dipping or the fact that they are eligible through another account that student government has is kind of a concern. And so I'd like to see some discussion on that, because I could be convinced that maybe it's not, but I think that this is kind of the same situation that we had with Greek Week. So I'll yield.
Senator Klaus.
Yeah, so to speak about, excuse me, like the eligibility requirements, I should have pulled them up before I started speaking, but so lectures is a contract. We do have like existing obligations in recurring contracts as an account. However, that's not under our discretion after we make that contract. Like, we can't tell lecturers how to spend their money. They don't have to approve it through us. We give them the money as their contract. So my argument is it is not an account. My argument for last week, and I don't think this is the same, but that's because my argument for last week was that it was the same event, and so I was saying last week didn't fit a different criteria. I think this event fits all the criteria of the Excellence Fund because there's not an org attached to it, so they can't get money through another student government account that goes through Finance Committee. It is a great event. It's the first time they're asking for it. I don't think it's going to be a recurring event, but we also can't plan for that in the future, and it hasn't happened before. So my spiel is that it fits all the things because lectures is not an account under student government. It is a contract that we have no power over once the contract is signed. I yield.
Senator Alucard.
This question is towards Senator Klaus. I was looking at the meeting minutes, and it looks like this was sent to Senate No Bias with the intention of tabling because they have outstanding requests to other colleges for funding. Can I ask what changed to have us not table that tonight?
We tabled it last week, and so this is the week after. So they got us all that stuff.
So do we, as student government, have an update on what what colleges have given them money now? So is this everything that's left over? I guess that could be directed at you or the speaker.
Well, yes, I have emailed the Finance Committee about it.
Do you want to just ask the
So
finance
just
director?
Or I
Finance
can
Director
say it
Mueller,
too.
can you comment on my question?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to find it right here. I have the totals. So this org got $1,000 from Student Affairs. Wait, sorry. Yes, Student Affairs donated 1,000, 8,000 from lectures, 500 from World Languages and Cultures, 200 from Accessibility Services, and then they're still hearing from Office of Provost, Diversity and Inclusion, and College of Design, and both of, like, all those three were waiting kind of for us. So we usually tell everybody, ask other people first, and then we'll give you what's left. They all said the same thing, so I feel like, and these are all, like, not student funding. These are like departments and colleges, so I feel like it's fair that we fund this, and then, you know, if those other colleges were to fund it more, if we, you know, then we could fund less, if that makes sense.
That
We
does
could
make
figure it out
sense.
if that happens, but.
And I apologize, Senator Klaus, my head is a little foggy, but thank you, I yield.
Senator Day.
Hello, everyone. So I am noticing this turning into an interpretation issue, at least parts of it, and interpretation issue over whether or not we can fund this. And that has given me flashbacks to Sparkle Squad, actually. And if I remember correctly, when that happened, some of the arguments that were made were interpretation issues should go out to the court, which obviously is not functional right now. And I believe then we tabled it because we shouldn't be interpreting our laws or something. So yeah, just something that came to mind. If Vice Speaker Schrader would like to talk about that more.
Yeah, I mean, that one we had a lot of interpretation issues. I could see a majority of senators here feeling like they know what it means, but the Sparkle Squad bill, I'm guessing that at least everyone was confused on at least one thing. So while it's slightly analogous, I could see that having a vote today would be fine because it's just one issue, not a whole suite of them. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Just something that came to my mind. I yield.
Senator Fritz.
Yeah, I'd just like to start out by saying I think this is a really cool event. So my next question is for Senator Klass. So you brought up the point that you don't think this is double dipping based on the argument made last week. Did you know that last week during the meeting?
Yeah.
You did? You knew that last week?
Yes.
Okay, and did you bring it up that it was kind of like an invalid argument? You said-
I would consider that germane, meaning that it's related to this bill because it's kind of connected. Go ahead, Senator Fritz.
So by the time I realized it, we were voting, and I was also out of speaking privileges real early. So I knew about it, and I communicated with other people afterwards.
Okay. So is it possible that we set a false precedent last week by not funding this based on the assumption that it was double dipping from lectures?
Possibly for some people, however, my motivation for voting no last week was that it was the same event and it did not meet a different criteria of the Excellence Fund. I had no problem with it being funded by lectures and by Senate.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Senator Zastro.
Regarding the whole double dipping thing, I'd just like to say the Committee on Lectures is funded from student activity fee money. In that sense, it is double dipping. But what's more important regarding whether or not this can be funded is that the Excellence Fund says not that it can't receive money from other student fees, but that it can't receive money from another account, which Committee on Lectures is not. It would be the same as saying that they could receive, that Special Ops Club is the same account. Once we delegate that money away, it's no longer a student government account. So from that perspective, it is fine as far as the eligibility requirements go. If you think that they should not be receiving funding because they already receive funding from Committee on Lectures, that's something separate, and I think it's important to keep those separate. I yield.
Senator Stanley. Senator Stanley. Senator Stanley. There's been an objection. Senator Heasley.
So could you explain what exactly this event is?
Boy, so Symphony of Diversity was taken from an annual event that the Symphony has usually done, which is where we bring in younger members from the Ames community that are in orchestra, and we basically put on a show for them, and we try and draw them into orchestra and into the Iowa State community and all that. Our new director this year has decided to go with a bigger vision and bring in speakers and as well as a performer, a violinist who is missing a hand, and so just to include people with outside voices as well. We're bringing in a chief of a First Nations people tribe from Canada. And so basically, it's a symphony of diversity and inclusion, and it's meant to connect the university as shown by the different people who have given funding to us. World Languages and Cultures Department, also not mentioned. We have received money from Department of Engineering and Kinesiology, Student Accessibility Services. So a lot of these different groups are trying to be represented in this event, and it's basically just for the community as well.
Okay, cool. So obviously this is a great event, and I feel like it does fit the Excellence Fund criteria. However, the argument of double dipping doesn't really relate to the Excellence Fund if we're saying that it's a different, because it's not an account that they're getting from. So I think I'll vote no on this just on the sake of double dipping into the student activity fee, but do what you will. I yield.
Senator Rowling.
Hi, so you mentioned something in there that I just want to double check on. So you said that this is, that in the past, you do an event in the spring with the orchestra, correct?
Yes.
All right, and would you say that in any, that this is a similar event to something that you've done in the past? Because from what we understood at Finance Committee, this seemed to be a much larger expansion of anything that you've ever had before, where we considered it a different event because you're bringing in speakers. I know that one of the speakers that you're bringing in is doing some work with the kinesiology department. Could you speak more to like the broad expanse of what this new event is, or would you say it is still a continuation of the?
I suppose so. The way that our director had presented it to me was that it was supposed to kind of take place in lieu of what we used to do, just like basically around the same time. And that's the way that we are going to involve the community rather than the orchestra just performing a few pieces. So it's only a continuation in that aspect, but it is something really entirely new. We've never brought in speakers or connected the university in this regard before.
Okay, excellent. We just wanted to double check on that. That is a criteria of our Excellence Fund account, is that we're not currently this year funding recurring events or asks. So thank you for clarifying that. I yield.
Senator Stanley.
All right. I just wanted to say that I don't think that the condition of lecturers' money is as incontrovertible as it seems. Sure, we sign a contract and we give the money to lecturers. So by the letter of the law, it's not an account that we as the Senate and the Finance Committee and the Finance Director directly exert influence over. But speaking to senators who are on the Lectures Committee, members of student government who are on the Lectures Committee, the amount of influence that members of student government exert over the decisions that the Lectures Committee makes, I would consider it to be an account that we have a fair amount of influence over. So I think it's up for interpretation, certainly. I don't necessarily disagree with the interpretation that it's not an account of ours, but I would take the opposite stance. So just on those merits, I will probably vote no, unless my mind can be changed in the time that we have left. I'll yield.
Senator Mass.
Thank you. Senator Rowling, I appreciate your points, and that's primarily what I'm going to direct my time to, because this is a little concerning to me. Can you clarify, this event is taking the place of a previous yearly event, but it is different because it has larger and has had some things change and is an expanded event with additional things in it that were not in it the previous year. This is like almost the definition of why we rejected last week's bill, because I said so. I guess, in my mind, Greek Week came to us because they wanted to expand an event to make it open to all members of the ISU community instead of just Greek community members, expand it into a larger area, and bring a speaker of the kind they have never brought before to the event. I get the whole lectures committee double dipping argument, but I think that's a very separate point, and I could maybe get over that one. But I don't know. This almost seems textbook to the definition of why we rejected last week's for both arguments. Both Senator Klass, your argument about it being a reoccurring event, and Senator Fritz, your argument for it double dipping into both accounts. So unless we're about to come up with new reasons for why we rejected last week's bill, I can't vote yes on this. I yield.
Senator Green.
Yeah, I was pretty much going to say everything to what he just said about, the reason why I voted no last week was because of the double dipping thing, less of like the requirements for the reoccurring event. But I just think it would set kind of a weird precedent and almost like we don't like the Greek community because we voted no for that, and if we vote yes for this. So those are my concerns.
Senator Oliver.
I think the double dipping argument is a moot point because it is something that we have addressed. The account is separate. Whether you choose to believe that it is an extension of student government or not, that is your personal opinion. We're not trying to sway you one way or the other. Last week's event was not eligible through the Excellence Fund, which is why I voted no. However, this event is. I understand that because this is now a more expanded event, that it can easily be seen as the same one, but have any of this so has any part of this event been repeated in the past?
No, and to my knowledge, even when the orchestra had done this before, we never asked for any funding from student government. So it's basically a completely separate thing. It's just for the orchestra, from our point of view, it's a continuation of that. But for the community and for the college, they never had any part in it really.
So when you say it's a continuation, what I'm more concerned with is if it fits the Excellence Fund. And so last year, what did the event look like? Just for explicit, let's get it out.
Okay, so last year, all the orchestra did was we went to Stevens, we brought in elementary schoolers from the Ames area, and we performed pieces that we had performed at our last concert.
Okay, and then what is the plan for this year?
This year, I don't know whether or not the orchestra will be performing, but we're bringing in the 2 speakers for them to give lectures and the 1 speaker to give a performance. And similarly, we're going to be bringing in people from the Ames community. It's open to the public. Stevens had charged us a ticketing fee, but after asking, there is actually no ticket or charge to attend this event.
Okay, so that has changed. I feel like at this point, we all have our interpretation as to whether it's Excellence Fund eligible, whether it's double dipping or not, and so I will yield because I see other placards up, but I think we all pretty much have our notions set about this. I yield.
Senator Blair.
My question is just why are we here? We are here, we collect student money, we want to spend it in a way to enrich the community. This event, we've talked about the Excellence Fund. I think it is under the 5 requirements. Lectures Fund is not our money. We should support a great event, and I'm going to be voting yes as I did last week. I think we seem to enjoy splitting hairs and interpreting things. Let's just make our city, our community better and vote for something that's going to make us better. Say.
Do you? Senator Zastro.
So first of all, I think we've made it very, very clear that this is a different event. It is essentially replacing a previous event instead of changing it. And then also I'd like to say to Senator Stanley's point, there is no gray area as to whether or not this is an account. This is not an account. Finance Director Mueller, can you second that?
We have 17 internal accounts, and this is not one of them.
So, I mean, this is what I said before. If you think there's something wrong about us funding this through Committee on Lectures and through this body, through the Excellence Fund account, that's fine. But it does not violate a criteria, and you should not vote it down because it violates a criteria on that merit. I'll be voting yes for this bill. I think it fulfills all the requirements. I think it is a great event, similar to Senator Blair. I don't yield. I have a sentence before that. I really hope you guys sincerely think through how this is how applying the criteria from the account works onto this, and I think it's pretty clear where the criteria point. Now I'll yield.
Senator Searles.
So I actually have a different perspective on the one that was that I voted no on last week, and I will be voting yes on this one this week. After I ask a question, if we do not fund this, does this event get called off?
I am not sure. What I've been asked to do is, because the other departments we've requested from are waiting on this, basically, is to focus on this. I think there's still a chance for it, even if this funding does not go through, however that chance is diminished.
Okay, so last week I asked, and this is relevant because it's going to translate into the next point, I asked if we funded the $5,000, but that the organization did not get the $12,000 from a different organization, if the $5,000 would be spent on the intent that we funded it, and that was to get the new auditorium. The answer was no. If we funded $5,000, but the other $12,000 fell through, it would not be held in the space that they were asking the money for. That being said, if you do not get this money, or you do get this money, but other organizations fall through, are you still able to hold it in the auditorium, CY Stevens?
Yeah, we will, yeah, just because this is for the hall rental, if we get this, we'll be able to do that. And then most everything else is covered. We may have to search elsewhere. But yeah, this is just for Stevens, so this is a kind of an essential part of the plan.
So on that, last week there was no guarantee the money would have been used for the intent. This one there is. For that reason, I will be voting yes. I yield.
Senator Vet.
Well, this is a question that goes out to Vice Speaker Schrader. So if I recall correctly, at some point in the past, you made a very impassioned speech about consistency and potential legal issues that might arise with not being consistent with the reasons we've used to reject similar requests in the past. And this kind of also piggybacks off the points outlined by Senator Mass. Just wondering what you have to say on the matter.
Yeah, that debate, the Sparkle Squad one, got concerning because a lot of senators were making arguments that the rules didn't apply because they were so recent. We need to apply rules consistently. I think there are enough arguments in the rules that, or in the room, that any competent lawyer could say, well, you know, maybe a couple people voted no for things that weren't consistent, but you know, the majority voted, you know, for different reasons, like Senator Searles was pointing out, trying to draw out differences between it. But I would say that if your reason for voting no on the Greek Week event was the double dipping, just try and be consistent or be cognizant and maybe try and find a different reason for you personally. But I don't imagine any legal troubles from this just because no one here is making arguments that the rules don't matter like they were during Sparkle Squad.
All right, thank you so much. I yield.
Senator Fritz.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that I will be voting yes on this. I voted yes last week. I see this exactly the same as Greek Week. I believe the double dipping argument was incorrect, as I did last week. Further, this is replacing an old event. The entire scope has changed, just as the one last week did. And I believe this will have a positive impact on students and the Ames community. So I think it's going to be a really cool event. And so I only brought up the double dipping point because I did not want us to make that mistake for a second time by bringing up a false argument again. So I just wanted to make that clarification really quickly. Thank you.
Do you?
Yes.
Senator Vet. Further speak. There's been a call. There's been a quorum call. Senator Vet. Olicard. Bender. Blair. Khan. Colbertson. Dollinger. Freds. Green. Hanyang. Heasley. Class. Klein. Lifford. Ludwig. Mass. Meredith. Mitchell. Rice. Renshi. Rolling. Samanu. Schrader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Tonet. Zastro. Crab. Origer. Gonzalez. We do have quorum. There's been a call to question on the bill as a whole, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Senator Advet.
Yes.
Olicard.
Yes.
Bender.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Khan.
Yes.
Colbertson. No. Dollinger.
No.
Fritz.
Yes.
Green. Hanyang.
Yes.
Heasley.
No.
Class. Klein.
Yes.
Lipford.
Yes.
Ludwig.
No.
Mass. Meredith.
Yes.
Renshi.
Yes.
Rolling.
No.
Samanu.
Abstain.
Schrader.
No.
Searles.
Yes.
Stanley. Samuel.
Yes.
Tonet.
Yes.
Zastro.
Yes.
Crab.
Abstain.
Origer.
No.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Green. Mass. 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 No. Did I miss anyone? With a vote of 16 to 10 to 3, this funding request fails. Moving on to internal matters. Within internal matters,
Thank you all, by the way.
within internal matters, General Orders 2019-2-48 SR, addressing student demands of action to prevent the spread of racism and anti-Semitism on campus with Senator Hanyan.
First, I'd like to accept the amendments made by SI committee.
There's been a motion to move to adopt the amendments proposed by the Student Initiatives Committee. And is there a second? There's been a second. We move into discussion. Senator Hanyan.
President Graber, looks like you have something to say.
I know it was some intention to table it. Don't table it yet. We have some students that would like to talk about some issues related to it. So yeah.
Awesome.
Just as an FYI.
Just about the amendments that are being made here, we had a lot of conversations about this bill in question over the past week. This is to update that based on the conversations had on November 4th and November 7th. In addition, a lot of the policy changes that have been made or stated by the university are now reflected in this bill, as well as some language changes. So as stated, after we allow the Students Against Racism to speak, my plan is to table the bill since a lot of the content has been changed for 1 week so that you all can look it over, and then we can come back and vote on it and discuss it next week. So, the amendments.
There's been a call to question on the amendments, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into and there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in approving the amendments by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment stands approved. Senator Hanyan.
All right, I'll go ahead and yield to the Students Against Racism who want to speak.
What's up? How? Happy Watch Day. So I am here to ask y'all a favor. So y'all have a particular relationship with the administration, with Wendy Winterstein, and I acknowledge that like things that have been maybe communicated to the student body aren't necessarily like the thoughts and the feelings of every single person in student government. However, as of very recent events, like as of today, I don't know if any of you got that email from the chiefs from the police. Do people know the context for that email? And like, you know, the white supremacy, like the genocidal sentiments associated with it. I just want to point out that this is going exactly how the Students Against Racism had warned it would go. It has now moved on to threats on lives. I am one of those students who was threatened, and this is just something that is absolutely unacceptable, period. This needs to be a priority. This needs to be a higher priority. This needs to be something that you pressure the administration to take action on, because they said they can't do anything unless there's a real threat to people's safety. This is a real threat now, according to their definition, whatever that is. So they got what they wanted. Whether they're gonna actually move the line back again, like fascists usually enjoy, is gonna be another question, but I encourage you to also put pressure on them to make it a priority, yeah.
Happy Wash Day. I'm another one of the students who was specifically targeted by the death threats that happened. And I think it's important to acknowledge that the death threats happened over a land acknowledgement that we did at the beginning of the session. Acknowledging that we are on stolen land, I think, is an important first step to doing any of these actions, because that's something that everyone needs to keep in mind while we're doing this. And the fact that there are people on this campus who feel comfortable enough where they're at this university and feel safe that no action or no negative repercussions will be taken against them enough to threaten me and my friends really reflects back on the attitude that the university currently has. And I think it's important to reflect upon that and keep that in mind while considering this bill specifically, because if action is not taken, people like this will continue to make threats and will even escalate those threats into action because they feel safe. They feel like no negative consequences are going to happen to them. The post in question, the death threats that was posted on Reddit, is still up. So please reflect on that while you have this bill in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo my comrades. I was also one of the students whose life was threatened over matters of, just addressing the fact that white supremacy is an issue on this campus. And y'all, I understand that there is some amount of bureaucratic tying, but there is more than you have access to power if you want to utilize it. Y'all need to stop dragging your feet on this, because I woke up this morning, thought it was going to be a normal day, got a call an hour into work telling me that my life was in danger and that the police were wondering if I needed to, be taken into custody or anything like that. I had 6 people offer me knives today, despite the fact that I refuse to go around armed. I am fucking terrified to talk right now, and that's what they want. Because when you give fascists a platform, when you drag your feet on this issue, they are going to take every chance they get to silence those in question. And y'all really, really, really need to push for this. We cannot stand up here with our lives in question and yell at you every time this happens. We should not be the only ones doing labor on this while having to risk our lives to do labor on this. We are begging you to actually make action happen. Thank you.
Thank you all. Further motions on this bill as a whole. Further motions on this bill as a whole. Senator Hania.
This is not a motion as of yet, but hearing what we just heard, would you all consider reading this and feel like we had sufficient time to argue over this or discuss this bill and then pass it tonight, given the circumstances that we are in? Or do you feel like this is an issue that needs to be postponed another week? Because it seems pretty clear that that's what the students are requesting. I'd just like to hear some discussion on that.
Do you? Could you repeat that again?
Not be proper to make the motion to table it and vote it down if we feel it would be appropriate to vote tonight? If it doesn't matter, I'll yield.
Doesn't really matter. Thank you for that, though. Senator Searles.
Would it be wise to table or to recess for 10 minutes and then come back? Yeah, move to recess for 10 minutes to read the bill.
There's been a motion to move to recess for 10 minutes, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we recess for 10 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Anyone wishing to speak within this on this bill can raise their placards now. Senator Searles.
So after some conversation, I know 10 minutes probably isn't a lot of time to digest a lot of this, a lot of the changes that were made, and a lot of the Iowa administrative codes that are cited in this resolution. After some conversation with the students that came to talk and the other authors, we are going to intend to table this bill for 1 week. Give everyone some ample time to read it, consider it, think about it. Some of the concerns that have been brought up is that this resolution also doesn't specifically address some of the concerns that have been brought up, which is just further indicating that we do have to take more action. We do have to put a lot more work into this, but it has to be done right. Those are not my words, but it is a shared sentiment. So I move to table this resolution for 1 week.
Second.
There's been a motion to move to table this bill for 1 week, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? What do you have, Senator Mass? Mike.
I move to amend the motion to add and recommit to the Student Initiatives Committee for further amendment.
So essentially what's going to happen is if this motion passes to the amendment to the motion, this bill will go back to Student Initiatives Committee, and Student Initiatives Committee is going to look at this bill. If they have any amendments, if they wish to change the bill, they will propose the amendments, and then we'll see the bill back next week. If that's correct, Senator Mass. Moving on to amendment to the motion. What do you have, Senator Stanley?
Gloves. Okay. So our original plan in student initiatives was to have us table the bill here and then not bring it back to the committee, but with the changing circumstance center ruling, do you think that it would be wise to have it recommitted to us?
Just to touch on that, the original plan was if there were any further amendments made, if it was after it was tabled, for it to come back to SI.
Okay, so then I think we should be good with bringing it back. Call to question.
There's been a called question and amendment to the motion, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? I'm sorry, I'm just thinking, how do I go about this? Hold on. But call to question on the amendment, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a placard vote, and there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in amending the motion by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the motion is amended. Now, the motion was to table this bill for 1 week, and the bill will be referred back to the Student Initiatives Committee to make further changes to the bill, and then we'll see the bill next week. Correct? Now, is there a second to the motion? There's been a second to the motion. Are there any objections in tabling this bill? Yes, Senator Green, what do you have?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with the part that we're tabling it to try and,
Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, kind of.
Do you have a point?
We're just pushing it off another week. We're not, like, I'm concerned that
Well,
we're-
then you can object to the motion and put your point forward.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, never mind then.
Objections to the motion? Do you object to withdraw? All right. Back to the bill as a whole. Senator Searles.
The reason that we are looking to table this for 1 week is to give everyone ample time to read through it, to consider what changes might want to be made. And that was also the decision that was agreed upon with the students that came to talk about it. But I will yield my time to President Graber for the time being.
So Senator Green was bringing up a concern that one of the students, so Senator Searles talked to the students on the left, Julius, and I don't know the other person's name, and then Senator Green was talking to a third student who brought up the concern that if we push this back, we are then pushing back the problem of white supremacy on campus. And so Senator Green wanted to bring that issue up to everyone. So there was a split between the students over there. They're talking about it right now, and we will have a consensus. Just wanted to clarify. I yield.
Senator Samuel.
Okay, so I agree with tabling it for a week just because they didn't get to read it either. So if we vote on it today, we're voting it from our perspective, not theirs. So I feel like they need to have a voice in it as well. I yield.
Senator Green.
Okay, yeah, that's what sorry, I was like confused as to when I was supposed to say this, I guess, but yeah, I agree with that. Like it's problematic that we're the ones voting on it when we've read it, but yeah, my concern was that we're kind of just like pushing back, you know, the urgency of the situation. I yield.
Senator Rinchie.
And I also want to just kind of state this out there, just because you know, I objected this so we could continue on a little bit this discussion that needed to happen. Just because we're tabling the motion doesn't mean we're tabling our own actions as people. We fully have the capability, every single one of us, to have action on this, even though that we know that the bureaucracy is going to take one more week in order for this to pass. That's the reason behind my objection. Thank you.
Further motions. There's been a motion to move to table this bill to 1 week and refer it back to the Student Initiatives Committee. And there's been a second. Are there any objections to tabling this bill? Seeing none, the bill has been tabled to 1 week. Moving on to 2019-2-49E, approving the 2020 Election Commission timeline with Madam Speaker.
Hello. Okay, so we have our election timeline up. It should be in the Senate packet. I will have Election Commissioner Rizvik come up and speak a little bit more to it. I yield my time to her.
Hello. Okay, so we are making so this election timeline is kind of similar to past election timelines that we've had. The only changes that we are making this year is that the campaign start date will, instead of starting on a Monday at 12:01 a.m., we are moving it to, I believe February 1st is a Sunday, at 7 a.m. This is just so that way students don't have to stay out until 12:01 on a school night, losing sleep in the cold. So that's why we came to that rationale for moving that campaign start date ahead. You're looking at a 4-week campaign schedule. Another change that we've also made is to the informative sessions. We're splitting the informative sessions so that way we have senatorial informative sessions, and those ones will be specific to just those who are running in Senate. And then the executive informative sessions are sessions that are specific to executive slates. They tend to spend more time campaigning, and so this informative session is kind of meant to guide them on university policy and how to go about those kind of things. But yeah, and then we also only have one date for this because we wanted to bring everyone in a room together so that way they could see their opponents, and hopefully that will encourage and promote quality debates as well. And yeah, I guess I'll take questions if you guys have any.
Questions for our beautiful election commissioner. Senator Zastrow.
So if there is a candidate for the executive slate who's not able to come to that one session, is there an alternative time or arrangement? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in the code, when we split up these two sections, I also have sent out this, and if it isn't in there, then we can amend that also. But what we have is, and this is for senatorial informative sessions as well, but as long as you contact us, we'll coordinate or accommodate to your needs.
Awesome, cool, thank you. I yield.
Further questions? There's been a call to question on the election timeline as a whole. Are there any objections? Is there a second? There's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Advait. Yes. Olicard. Yes. Bender. Yes. Blair. Yes. Khan. Yes. Culbertson. Yes. Dollinger. Yes. Fritz. Yes. Green. Yes. Hanyang. Yes. Heasley. Yes. Class. Yes. Klein. Yes. Klein. Lifford. Yes. Ludwig. Yes. Mast. Yes. Meredith. Yes. Rinchi. Yes. Rolling. Yes. Samanu. Yes. Schrader. Yes. Searles. Stanley. Yes. Samuel. Yes. Tonette. Yes. Zastro. Crab. Yes. Origer. Yes. Gonzalez. Yes. With a vote of 28 to 0 to 1, this election timeline passes.
Thank you, guys.
Moving on to 2019-2-50 Court Reform Constitutional Amendment with Madam Speaker.
Okay, everyone, these are the court reform constitutional amendments that we are proposing. They're from Rules Committee. I would first like to propose one of the amendments that Rules Committee would like to make. One sec. I will yield to Senator Mast to discuss this first amendment.
On behalf of Rules Committee, I move to substitute the words on line 44 and 45, the words, to replace the words justices of the Supreme Court with members of the judicial branch and let it be further with the Senate shall have the power to remove any officer outside of their own membership.
There's been a motion to move to amend the ordered clause. And there's been a second. We move into discussion. Senator Mast.
Yeah. I guess as Senator Schrader, could you delete some words between two and the red? The line above where it says amended to, instead of replace, just say read, and then to the red, that extra black words aren't necessary. Yep. There you go. Yep. So this is the Rules Committee amendment. The point of this amendment is currently our Constitution lays out very specifically that only the President, Vice President, members of the Election Commission, and members of the Supreme Court can be impeached by the Senate. Rules Committee views this as problematic, especially, what if we have members of the cabinet? The argument historically has been, well, we should hold the president accountable for cabinet members' actions, but it seems a little extreme to me to be trying to impeach a president for such actions. Well, then the question is, can the Senate then revoke an executive order by a 2/3 vote that appoints a cabinet member? And that's kind of a sticky constitutional question. We think it would be much better if the entire process is through the impeachment process, because it guarantees more rights to those being impeached, and that they have more opportunity to defend themselves that otherwise wouldn't be available. And then now further, they also have more protection in that the Supreme Court also has to affirm any impeachment offered by the Senate. So this just clarifies up a couple different processes that are currently handled several different possible ways into one more concrete process. With that, I'll yield.
Vice Speaker Schrader.
Yeah, I voted against this in Rules Committee, and I would like to say why. I don't think Senate should have the power to remove individual members of the cabinet, especially members of the cabinet that have been established by bylaw. The executive order one, I think maybe Senate should have the power to revoke because past Senates never voted to make those positions. Those were just executive orders. So maybe those should be allowed to be overruled. But I see a distinction with the ones that are in the bylaws. I think the president should have the authority to run their own branch without having Senate interfere with that when they do something we don't like. I think that the president can be held accountable for the actions of their cabinet if the president refuses to take action. You know, and I understand that it'd probably be easier just to remove the individual cabinet member, but I think that the executive branch behaves as an administration, and we should have that responsibility lie with the top of that administration. I do not believe that Senate should have this power, and I also think that this, well, I'll leave it there, but I would not vote for this. I didn't vote for it in Rules Committee, and when we discussed it in our working group this summer, I did not vote for it then.
Yeah, so I did vote for this in Rules Committee, and although I do understand some of Vice Speaker Schrader's concerns, I don't think the Senate having the ability to impeach members of the cabinet really interferes that much with the president and vice president's ability to run the executive branch. I think what it does is clarify a hole in our existing constitution, which is we don't know if we can deal with members of the executive branch in that way. And I think if the only subsequent action that we have is to impeach the president, I think that's an extreme action. And I think this is a better way of handling situations like this. I understand the concerns that Vice Speaker Schrader have, but I think that the benefits of this far outweigh the costs. So I will be voting for this amendment.
Senator Klein.
I guess this would be for Senator Schrader or Vice Speaker Schrader. Does this take away the president's ability to remove their own executive cabinet members?
I would not read it as that way, no.
So the president still has the ability to make up their own cabinet and still has the ability to remove people from their cabinet positions if they deem fit?
Yeah.
So the only change would be is that if Senate deemed that someone was acting improper in a cabinet position, that we would have the power to begin impeachment proceedings, which would then go to the courts.
Yeah, yes. As long as the rest of that stays the same,
Yes.
yeah, you're correct.
Okay. I mean, I don't see any reason not to approve this then. To me, it seems pretty clear-cut that if someone is acting out against their role and we as Senate deem that necessary to move towards impeachment, that we should. The president still has all the power to affect their cabinet. They still have the power to choose who to remove if they wanted to. And I think that this just gives another layer of a check on the executive branch from Senate. I yield.
Senator Rinchi.
I guess I'm just a little undecided right now, but I think that we also have the power to, go communicate with the president. If we think that one of the people is acting out of line, we can go and kind of pressure the president and say, can you justify those actions? And then if you don't think those are justifiable and you think it's repeated over a long period of time, then that's when you might question the integrity of the president. But I'm also, I see both sides here. It'd be kind of interesting to get a few more people's opinions on this topic.
Do you? What? Speaker Culbertson.
So I was absent for this meeting, so I'm just kind of fresh to hearing all about this now. But I think that that if there's a cabinet member who is being so difficult to the point where we're wanting them removed, and we really cannot speak with the president to figure things out, to talk through the matter, to try to resolve it, like they absolutely will not remove this person, then I absolutely agree that like that's a matter of then holding the president accountable. I think it's kind of like if I were refusing to like give you all nonfeasances, or again if I was refusing to give myself nonfeasances, I would hope that you all would kind of then like come to me about that as opposed to like a cabinet member trying to like remove me or something. I think that our own members should take care of our own branches in a way. I yield.
Senator Zastrow.
Yeah, so I think that this amendment would be a good thing. I think it'd be better for Senate to have that oversight. I think that adding another body that has the authority to remove a figure if they're acting poorly means that members of the cabinet won't get too comfortable feeling like they're friends with the president, so they have a certain amount of like personal protection. And I mean, I don't want that to sound nepotistic or anything. I don't think that President Graber would do that. But I just think that this is another route of oversight, and I think that another route of oversight would also have Senate hold cabinet to a higher standard, and I would hope that cabinet lives up to that job. So I do think that this is a good thing. President Graber, do you feel like your administration would be hindered if your cabinet members were able to be overseen by Senate?
I have full confidence in my cabinet members. I do have a point, though. I was just asked. A cabinet member asked if there's no oversight with cabinet to Senate, though. Like, I can't remove Senator Zastro. Is just a point that you should all think about.
Well, why would you want to, first of all?
Oh, well, I have full confidence. Why would you want to remove one of my cabinet members? I
That's
apologize.
true.
Yeah, no, just food for thought. I just thought I'd bring that up. That's why I was listening to that conversation.
I would say the difference is that the cabinet members are appointed by the president, and that's one person who's elected, and the Senate is elected by the entire body of students, and every member of the cabinet is appointed from one person, whereas the Senate, I think, more accurately represents the entire body. And I'm not questioning your judgment at all, but just structurally, I yield.
Senator Ludwig.
Yeah, so I'd just like to touch again a little bit on the concerns that both Speaker Culbertson and Vice Speaker Schrader have brought up, specifically related to the fact that we should be in a position, I guess, we should hold the president accountable. I think there are conceivable situations where there may be legitimate disagreements over whether or not a cabinet member would need to be removed, and so there may be a situation where the president has grounds that they may see as feasible and may be reasonable grounds for like them refusing to remove. And so I think just allowing for the discussion to move beyond that point is healthy, and I don't think it detracts from anything. So I don't, I guess, agree with the concerns, and I just don't see a lot of harm in this thing. And I think it actually provides a more thorough outline of how our process should work. I yield.
Senator Green.
Yeah, to kind of generally sum that up, my thought right away was like, if we have the power to vote them on, like, why would we not have the power to vote them off? I'm sure you could critique that, but just generally, that's kind of my thought process.
Senator Stanley.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose having the power to remove specific members of cabinet would be nice to sort of get at the root of the problem if a cabinet member is being an issue. But to me, the conceivable situations that I can think of where that happens always end in there being a major schism in student government internally between Senate and cabinet. So at that point, I feel like the working relationship, if we ever need to invoke this power, I think the working relationship deteriorates to a point where it's unusable. So I don't know if there's a good solution for that, but I don't think that this is it. I yield.
Senator Simon.
I agree with Alex Klein because we need to have a check on each department. So in the past, we had a situation where the president was unable to take action on the people. So I would say to vote yes on this bill. I yield.
Jeremiah.
Thank you. I would just like to add a further amendment to the amendment that should hopefully have no debate. That would just add another ordered clause to remove the word sole from Article 3, Section A, subsection 2 of the Constitution. That this is just for consistency's sake because it says the president has sole authority to remove members of the executive branch, and this obviously changes that.
Can you, yeah.
I sent it. amending Article 3, Section A, subsection 2, to strike the word sole.
Senator Mass, I just want a clarification. How is that an amendment to an amendment?
The intent of the amendment is to give Senate the authority to impeach cabinet members. This helps further that intent.
Okay. There's been a motion to amend the amendment, and with addition of that order clause, is there a second? There's been a second. We'll move into discussion. Senator Mass.
I will yield.
Senator Class.
Can you read, can you just read this Article 3, Section A, Subsection 2? Is that Senator Mass?
Question to Senator Mass. Could you read it?
Article 3, section.
Just as a clarification, with your amendments that you are proposing, both of them?
Both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, I will begin with Article 3, Section A, subsection 2. The current language is, all executive powers and authority of the government shall be vested in, that's the right one. Article 3, subsection 6. Okay. The president shall have the sole authority over removal of any and all executive officers and staff, with the exception of the vice president. Amended, it will read, the president shall have authority over removal of any and all executive officers and staff, with the exception of the vice president. Article 1, Section H, subsection 1, currently reads, the power to impeach and remove the president, vice president, justices of the Supreme Court, and the members of the Election Commission shall be vested in the Senate. Amended, it will read, the Senate shall have the power to remove any officer outside of their own membership.
Cool, thanks. I yield.
Senator Ludwig.
Senator Mass, would you accept a friendly amendment to change it to subsection 6?
I would.
Vice Speaker Schrader.
Yeah, this is required to make the other one work, so I'll call the question.
There's been a call to question to the amendment to the amendment, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into a and there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in approving the amendment to the amendment by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment to the amendment stands approved. Senator Mass.
I will call the question on the amendment.
There's been a call to question on the amendment as a whole, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into a placard vote. People who are in favor of this amendment, please raise their placards now. High up. Individuals against? With a vote of 17 to 13 to 0, this amendment passes. Moving on to the bill as a whole, Senator Mass.
Would Speaker Colbert accept a friendly amendment to strike lines 66 through 70? It's a duplicate ordered clause. Oh, yeah. There are two ordered clauses in a row that are the same, whichever two they are. All right. And I have one further amendment. This is an amendment. I move to wherever the lines are now, but they were 160 through 161.
Can you just repeat the first part of the word?
Yeah, that Article 4, Section D, subsection 3 of the Constitution, the student government be added to read, the impeachment court shall compose. Yep. To strike the words two justices of the court as delineated in the bylaws, president of the student body and vice president of the student body. and replace that with "and for members of the Election Commission" as delineated within the bylaws.
There's been a motion to move to amend the particular ordered clause, and the amendment is proposed. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second. We move into discussion. Senator Mass.
Yes, the logic on this one was discussed by myself and Senator Ludwig when we were writing this section. The recommendation made over the summer was to have the president, the vice president, and 2 justices of the court as delineated in the bylaws participate on the court when a justice of the Supreme Court is the impeached party. There were concerns that particularly the president and vice president are not judges, and now we are moving them into a capacity as judges when that's not really what the students elect them to do or what their particular area of expertise is within the government. We're reorganizing Election Commission now underneath the judicial branch, so they are kind of de facto judges, and they're probably the ones besides the Supreme Court who have the most experience ruling on contentious cases between campaigns and the government and other areas such as that. So we think it would be prudent then to select a section of the Election Commission to then be that court in the case where the Supreme Court can't do it because there are potential conflict of interests. With that, I will yield.
So, further motions on the amendment. Senator Stanley.
This is a question to Senator Mass. Could there not be a conflict of interest with members of the Election Commission who would be theoretically selected by the Chief Justice in the court? Because I understand that the Chief Justice would be the one to nominate the Election Commissioner at the very least. Would there not be a conflict of interest there?
So the answer is potentially yes, but the answer would also be the court is also, there's also potential conflict of interest in the president and vice president who appoint the Chief Justice, or justices, and then the court selects the Chief Justice, but same deal. I think the answer there too is the Election Commission, by virtue of the fact that they have terms, as long as they continue to be students, leaves some area of impartiality where they may have been appointed by a previous president. So overall, I think that this is a good amendment for those reasons.
Thank you for clearing that up. Seeing no other placards up, I'll call to question.
There's been a call to question on the amendment, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a placard vote. And there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in approving the amendment by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment stands approved. Senator Mass.
Yeah. Overall, those were my concerns with the bill. I think that overall, this provides a really robust new Supreme Court and a robust judicial branch with the election commission now within it. Overall, I really like the language that we've adopted, and I came into this process very unsure whether or not I liked some of the ideas that the task force submitted over the summer. So I just want to first off thank everyone on Rules Committee who spent a lot of time on this, everyone on the task force who spent a lot of time on this. I think that we're going to move forward with a very effective court, and I look forward to working with the rest of this body to promote this to the students and get this passed at the next general election. So with that, I will yield my time.
Senator Ludwig.
Would Madam Speaker accept one last friendly amendment? I don't know the line number anymore because it changed, obviously, but it was 150. It changed Article 4, Section D, subsection 2. What? Oh, it's 142 now? In that ordered clause, it says the Chief Justice or Associate Justice. Earlier in this document, it says Election Commissioner, so Chief Justice or Election Commissioner, because in the case that the Chief Justice is being impeached, obviously there's no point in delivering the articles of impeachment to them.
Could you repeat the amendment?
Yeah, so it would change Associate Justice to Election Commissioner. That was the intent earlier in the bill. I was asking if she would accept a friendly.
No. You can just propose the amendment.
Yeah, I'll propose the amendment then.
You can just ask questions.
Vice Speaker, a question.
the Chief Justice or Associate Justice that would be acting as Chief Justice if there's no Chief Justice there. So could you add it to the end, maybe, onto the list? So Chief Justice, Associate Justice, or Election Commissioner?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would move that. So I would move to amend the ordered clause to read Chief Justice or Associate Justice or Election Commissioner.
There's been a motion to move to amend line 147 and add election commissioner at the end. And there's been a second. We move into discussion. Senator Ludwig.
Seeing no placards, I call the question.
There's been a call to question on the amendment, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into a placard vote. And there's been a call for unanimous consent. Are there any objections in approving the amendment by the way of unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment stands approved. Senator Ludwig. Senator Toinette.
Okay. I'd also like to propose kind of a small, friendly amendment. So I don't have line numbers when I printed this out, but it's in like the middle of the third page.
Do
Yeah.
you have the article reference? Because it does go in order.
Article 4, Section C, subsection 3.
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, that one. So on the second line, can we just change his, her to say there? Just, to be more inclusive.
Do you want to?
Okay. All right, and that was it. Call to question?
Second. There's been a call to question on the bill as a whole, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote. Senator Advet. Yes. Olicard. Bender. Yes. Blair. Yes. Hahn. Yes. Culbertson. Yes. Dollinger. Yes. Fritz. Yes. Green. Yes. Han Young. Yes. Heasley. Yep. Class. Yes. Klein. Lifford. Yes. Ludwig. Yes. Mass. Yes. Meredith. Yes. Rinchi. Yes. Rolling. Yes. Samanu. Yes. Trader. Oh yeah. Searles. Yes. Stanley. Yes. Samuel. Yes. Toinette. Yes. Zastro. Yes. Crab. Yes. Orger. Yes. Gonzalez. Yes. 29 to 01. Olicard. With a vote of 28 to 0 to 1, this bill passes. Congratulations. Advet. Olicard. Bender. Here. Blair. Here. Khan. Here. Culbertson. Here. Dollinger. Here. Fritz. Here. Green. Here. Han Young. Here. Heasley. Here. Class. Here. Klein. Klein. Lifford. Here. Ludwig. Here. Mass. Here. Meredith. Here. Mitchell. Here. Rice. Rinchi. Rolling. Samanu. Trader. Searles. Stanley. Samuel. Toinette. Zastro. Crab. Orger. Gonzalez. We have four. Moving on to 2019-2-48F, funding Senate office paint with Senator Lifford.
Yeah, we're just trying to make the office look more inviting and interesting with a red accent wall on the back. So, any questions?
Do you yield?
I yield.
Senator Zastro.
So we formed a task force about the office, redoing the office. Speaker Culbertson, thoughts on the paint?
Yeah, so this was talked about like a really long time ago, actually, and the original idea that was brought up was yellow and red, and originally I was like, I don't want that. But then we talked about it, and we thought that red could potentially be better, so if no one has any like crazy objections to it, I really don't mind. I think it would bring color to the office, so I figured it would be something the task force would most likely agree to, but if the task force members would like to wait, we can also consider that, so, but I don't mind.
Cool. Call the question.
There's been a call to question. There's been a call to question, and there's been a second, and there's been an objection. Do you withdraw? Do you yield? Yes. Senator Green.
So Ellie didn't want to ask, so I'm asking for her. What is this, who are we paying to paint it? Could we potentially have a cute little family, like we all paint? Okay, that was the question, sorry. I yield. I don't yield.
Question?
Finance Director Mueller.
So I've been talking with SAC a lot, Student Activity Center. They own all the West Sauce and East Sauce offices. Before this year, they never let anybody change the paint on those walls. We brought it up. They think that we will be great guinea pigs kind of for the rest of the office spaces. So we're going to be like the model for the rest of the offices. The MU has to paint it. They have a full-time painter that works in the MU, and it has to be that red and yellow that are in the office. Those are our only two options. We can't do anything else fun. So those are our options. We also talked to the marketing director of the MU. Letitia, was the one that recommended that one red accent wall. She thought the yellow and red would be too much. I trust her. She does a lot of the stuff around here. Also, this is for the paint and labor for the MU. We are hoping to do this over winter break is ideal. We will have to move some things ourselves to cut down on those labor costs, but shouldn't be too bad at all. And they're hoping to also clean up the other walls. They're like kind of dirty, but we may have to do some of that ourselves.
There's been a call to question on the bill as a whole, and there's been a second. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we move into a roll call vote. Advet. Yes. Alucard. Bender. Yes. Blair. Yes. Khan. Khan. Yes. Culbertson. Yes. Dallinger. Yes. Fritz. Yes. Green. Yes. Hanyang. Heasley. Yes. Plath. Yes. Clifford. Yes. Ludwig. Yes. Max. Yes. Meredith. Yes. Rinchi. Yes. Rolling. Yes. Samanu. Yes. Schrader. Yes. Cyril. Yes. Stanley. Yes. Samuel.
Yes.
Toinette. Yes. Zastro. Crab.
Yes.
Orger. Yes. Gonzalez. Zastro. Yes. With a vote of 28 to 0, we're getting a new office paint. Moving on to new business, 2019-2-51Y, expanding diversity and inclusion committee with Senator Vice Speaker Schrader.
Title. I tried to make this the shortest bill ever. Did I get close?
Questions of intent? Seeing none, we'll see this one next week. Moving on to 2019-2-52E, 2020 Election Code. Madam Speaker.
Title. We will see this one next week. Please, please, please read it. It is long, but it is very, very important. The sooner you read it and talk to Commissioner Brisvig about any questions you have, the better our meeting next week will go. So please make sure you come ready and informed. It can be a longer meeting, but it's good. So, yeah.
Questions of intent? Seeing none, we'll see this one next week. Moving on to 2019-2-50F, funding National Society of Black Engineers with Senator Class.
Title. Yeah, we'll see it in Finance Committee next week. It seems fairly simple, so it won't take a lot of our time before election code.
Questions of intent? Seeing none, We'll see this one next week. Closing announcements. Senator Ludwig.
Welcome again to your weekly lectures update. So tomorrow, November 14th, at 7 p.m. in the South Ballroom, we have the Vietnam veterans still coming home with Dr. Steve Feimer. Next Tuesday on November 14th, at 8:15 p.m. in the Great Hall, we have impeachment now and then, how the inquiries evolved from Nixon to Clinton to Trump. And then also on Tuesday at 8 p.m. in the Great Hall, there is Seeking Security in an Unstable World with Frank Figliuzzi, who is a former FBI director. And then, yeah, so those are all the ones between now and the next Senate meeting. Again, all of the information for these lectures is on the lecture series website. Go there, learn about them, go to these lectures. They're all awesome. So, yeah, I yield.
Senator Stanley. I would appreciate everyone could pay attention to the speaker and cut down the side talks, please. Thank you.
Hi. I have a question for the gang. Do you love Ames? If you do, come to our meeting at 7:30 p.m. next Monday in the West Sauce. Sorry, it's usually at 6, but I have an exam from 5 to 8:15, so have to move it back a bit. Let's do it. Let's make it 7:30. Okay. Yeah, I'll be done with my exam before then. Book it.
Is that all?
No. Also, I just wanted to say as well, I noticed some confusion with like amendments and amendments to the amendments. Roberts actually delineates specific verbiage for that. It's primary amendment and secondary amendment, so that might clear up some confusion. If you all would like to refer to them as such, that would be cool. Might clear things up a bit more. I'll yield.
Senator Zastro.
Part one, I'd just like to say, Senator Ludwig, I love the weekly lecture review. Thank you. Stay warm, y'all. Have a good week. I yield.
Senator Rolig.
Hi, everyone. So, as you may know, me and a couple other senators, snaps to them, have been working on the solar lighting project. I am looking at putting that bill up for first read next week. Once you get it, please read it. Please come talk to me if you have any issues or if you need any clarifications. We've been working really hard on it, so please come talk to me, find me, email me, text me, beat me if you want to reach me, any of that. So, all right, thanks.
Director of Outreach, Swartz.
Okay, so I just passed down around a physical sign up for the Residency Fair and the Lifestyle Expo, so you should definitely sign up for that. Also, if you didn't see on our social media, we're now doing kind of like synopses of Senate meetings. So Matthew did it last week. He did a fantastic job. And so we're looking for a senator to stay after for like literally 2 minutes and doing it.
Senator Hania.
Question. It says 11 to 12 p.m. for the Lifestyle Expo. It's supposed to be 11, 12 a.m.
11 a.m. to 2 p.m. That was my mistake.
Okay, awesome. I'll just fix that.
So would anyone be willing to do that? It's not hard, I promise. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Schrader.
Election Commissioner, did you have something? Yes.
Okay, so I know the election code is very long. There's a lot of revisions that we have made to it. I've gone through and tried to highlight all of our changes that we made, and I sent that out to you guys. Yep, that's it. There's new sections. There's the section for executive seminars. There's a definitions section. We decided to move definitions outside of each each section and just like make it its own part. We've also added a section regarding the campaign websites. If you guys weren't aware, the websites are moving onto the student government page. If there are questions, you can talk to me or Shabam about that. I would suggest talking to Shabam though, because I don't know how websites work or anything. I'm a poli-sci major. But yes, I will try to have office hours starting tomorrow through the week as best as I can. I'm very busy, but I'll try my hardest. If you'd like to meet outside of that, I can also try to do that. We can meet at Starbucks or something. Just let me know. Email me. Email me if you have a question. Call me. Whatever you need to do to reach out to me. But yeah.
Senator Fritz.
Yeah, so this is just a really quick plug for a cool new club I heard about on campus. It's called the Paranormal Research Club. Yeah, sounds pretty cool to me, if I say so myself. So yeah, if you're looking to get involved in that, you can go on the student activities website, or you can contact Morgan Fritz. She's the president of it. So yeah, let me know if you want to get involved. Thank you.
Senator Searles.
So, hate to, I guess, bring it down, but I think I'd like to just point out that students came here tonight, 3 students that woke up to find out that someone threatened to kill them. I'll let you sit with that for a second. To me, that's pretty scary, and I wasn't targeted. I'm sure that's the same for everyone in here. I was able to talk with them afterwards as well, and it's pretty clear what's wanted. And I know that there's a lot of questions about what's legal in being wanted, and the consequences is what is wanted. Consequences for the actions, for the speech, against someone's identities, against someone's existence. What I'm asking y'all to do is to think about this over the next week or the next few days. Think about what things could happen. If something comes to your head and you think, that might not be legal, go find out if it's legal. It's inconvenient to look things, or to have to look things up to see if we can do certain things, but it's damn terrifying to know someone wants you dead. Our inconvenience is okay? So I would encourage everyone to look into that. If you come up with ideas, send me an email. Let me know. There's a group of people working on this. Speaking of that, would that group of people stick around afterwards and chat with me? There will be a meeting this week with the students, and we're hoping, what they've asked us, is to propose consequences for students that use neo-Nazi language and actions on campus. Just putting that on your radar. That will be coming up. Please think about it. Please let me know. I'm literally begging you. They are literally begging us to do something. That's what we can do. We can't drag our feet. So on that note, it's probably slippery outside, so be careful. I yield.
Senator Khan.
This Friday, it's America Recycles Day. I highly encourage all of you to stop by the table. It'll be great. We'll have some fun games you can play, and if you're a smart noodle, then you'll win a pin, and the pin looks rad. Also, Morgan, I'm fairly certain my house is haunted. It's real old, and I'm pretty sure someone died in it, so that's all.
Senator Samuel.
Okay, on a happier note, I want to congratulate everyone who votes and everyone who participated, because this past Friday we did receive the voting award from the Secretary of State, and that's going to be hung up at Cat Hall. And for the people who don't vote or don't care to vote, just know your voice does matter, and one vote can change a lot. So with that being said, also the 3 events happening this weekend, if anyone wants to join, contact me or Elena. Thank you.
Senator Bender.
Yeah, I'll keep it short too. I'm just having like a program come tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Wednesday, my bad. Inclusive Culture University. It's gonna bring like a sense of diversity to the university, y'all. So if you have any questions, just come up to me. I'm gonna try to send out a little bit more information on what it is, but yeah.
Senator Han Young.
tomorrow and Saturday at the Martha Owens High Recital Hall and Music Hall, the Iowa State Opera Studio is putting on a charming retelling of Cinderella. That's something that a lot of the music performance and vocal performance and other music students at Iowa State are worked on for a while. It's part of a class, but it's also something that these people have really been passionate about. I know I have a lot of friends who are participating in either one of those days. Tickets $5 at the door, 7:30 p.m. Thursday, 1:30 p.m. on Saturday. And also with the cold weather and everything that's going on, a lot of you are congested or have a cough like I do. So, get some tea with honey in it. Just take care of yourselves, rest easy this weekend, and manage how much time you're using your voice. So that's all.
Senator Rinchi.
Next Monday, the Martial Arts Club reached out to me. They want to say that they're having a fundraiser at Blaze, so from 5 to 8 p.m. So if you want to go support some students who are helping empower other students, 5 to 8 at Blaze next Monday.
Senator Green.
Next Tuesday, the 19th, from 11:30 to 1 in the MU room 3505, there's an LAS campus climate conversation. There will be free food, preferably people, no one's going to get turned down, but specifically, I would like the diversity and inclusion people to go. I will go. But yeah, just a general LAS campus climate conversation, Tuesday the 19th, 11:30 to 1, free food, MU room 3505. Thank you.
Chief of Staff Kuzo.
Cool. Hello. Never used one of these ones before. Okay, so I have two announcements. The first one, I sent a leadership breakout email this afternoon. So that is tomorrow at 5 o'clock in the student or the Senate office. So looking forward to you all being there. We're talking about what it means to be an empowering leader, which is super cool. I'm excited because that's what a lot of powers that leaders have, but sometimes we forget about that and what that means just to be the most effective in that way. So hope to see you all there. And then the other one is something Rachel wanted me to bring up, which is the campus accessibility review, which is pretty much very similar to the campus safety walk, but this is looking at going inside buildings on campus and looking to see if they're accessible for any sort of range of disabilities. And so it's really important. There's a sign up on the MIS, and it is next Thursday from 6 to 8. So please sign up and look. We met with, me and Rachel met with someone in Equal Opportunity, talked about some of these things. It was really interesting to learn how many buildings are not accessible in certain areas. Even just think about different stuff, not even just someone that may be in a wheelchair or in crutches. There's so many variety of things. So if you're interested in that, sign up. It's really important for students. And that's it. Any questions? Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Chase. I just had a couple of things. First of all, with the recent events going, specifically people who belong to marginalized identities, please take care of yourself. If you're planning on going somewhere out, make sure to text your friends so that at least they know where you are. Because I personally have had death threats in the past, and it really sounds very scary in terms of even stepping out, even to go to class. Utilize the Guardian app that ICPD put out. That is very helpful. That will keep your friends updated of where you are, and just take care of yourself. Your academics comes first, but not on the cost of your safety. That is very important. And secondly, the Policy Library Advisory Committee is looking for a student representative. So their next meeting is on December 17th. I believe that will be the week of finals week. They will be meeting on a Tuesday from 2 to 3:30 p.m. And what they're discussing in the coming up meeting will be the international travel registration as well as the chalking policy. So anyone who's interested can come to me after the meeting, and I can forward on the name, whoever's interested. But otherwise, as Senator Hanyang mentioned, the weather's going to be changing pretty soon. So make sure to take care of self, practice self-care as we approach that week and finals week. Make sure to take some rest and horns down. Vice Speaker Schrader.
Yeah, I like to start off with when it comes to what can we do to punish students. This is something that I've taken the last month or so to try and consciously learn more about. I've read a couple books about what due process looks like on college campuses, as well as I've reached out to members of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, which is the leading nonprofit in this area. So if we have questions, and I don't know, maybe we could set up a phone call with someone from that organization. Otherwise, I do know University Counsel Mike Norton is pretty quick about responding to emails, especially around this topic. So if I would be happy to help out in any way I can with that. And then I wanted to apologize for having the his, her language in the constitutional amendment. That was the part we cut and pasted from the state of Nebraska, and it just was an oversight, and I apologize for that. But I am very happy that it passed overall. This was a big project with a lot of people involved, so I hope that it's on the ballot, and so please, tell people. I don't think there's any rules about campaigning for that, so like we can start campaigning for that now. We don't have to wait till February. There's. We'll chat about it later. But anyway, please tell people to vote for it. This would be really sad to have all this effort, take a step forward, and then take a step back because students weren't informed. So it's our job. Yeah. So please don't do anything sketchy, but go tell people to vote for it.
So everyone starts campaigning now. Speaker Closer.
Okay, so the Campus Climate Ad Hoc Committee is almost ready to start. We have, or so far I have 4 names of students who would like to be part of it, so I need either 2 more or like an official list. So if anyone has any suggestions for students that should be on it, let me know. Once I have those, the memo will be pretty much ready to send out, and that will be official. Then I sent out 2 surveys today. One for a January retreat date, not today. There's 2 surveys out. The January retreat date one, which I just sent out today. So please fill that one out. I forgot to put names on it, so I don't know who's responded, but the 11 of you that have, thank you. And then the card access survey that I sent out a few days ago, please have that filled out by the end of tonight so I can get that to Bridget so that you all can get access to our beautiful office. Oh yeah, and the code doesn't work anymore, so like 232323 won't work, so you have to have card access now. Yes. So keep that in mind. I will be sitting down and reading through the whole election code this weekend, so I recommend that you all do the same so that you are able to answer your own questions, but then also you have your questions ready ahead of time for Emily so we don't have to have an uninformed debate, because that's when that gets long. And then lastly, I know I promised you all pizza for helping clean the office, and that didn't happen, so I'm thinking pizza for moving stuff off the wall so we can get painted during winter break. So be ready for that. Go Cyclones, and move to adjourn.